Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Silver and gold price controls at the same time that Bitcoin melts down. Not only are we going to go over those things, we'll go over the gap, the premiums, and we're also going to respond to Grant Cardone telling people that nobody's buying gold. But what we're going to start today is by breaking news, and we're going to listen to JD Vance, and we're going to try to figure out, are they going to create a price floor for metals?
The international market for critical minerals is failing. It's failing to create domestic markets or dignified jobs for our labor forces, and it's failing to keep our nation safe. Supply chains remain brittle and exceptionally concentrated. Asset and commodity prices are persistently depressed, driven downward by forces beyond any individual country's control. Now, how many times cumulatively have one of us or many of us in this room heard some variation of the story that I'm about to tell? A lithium mine, a gallium recovery center, you name it, is announced, sometimes with years in planning and financing nearly in place. Then overnight, foreign supply floods the market, the prices collapse, and investors pull out. The project stalls, and eventually the project dies on the vine. We've all seen it firsthand in all of our countries. And the result is a global market where consistent investment is nearly impossible, and it will stay that way so long as prices are erratic and unpredictable. And that's one of the things that we want to work on with this initiative. Let's make the prices more predictable and less erratic so that we can support the domestic supply chains and the investment that makes those supply chains possible.
Now, before Mitch responds to JD Vance and kind of gives us his interpretation of what he's saying, let's go over some breaking news. Now, Zero Hedge is already on top of this. Look at 337,000 views. They're saying Vance confirms Trump proposing critical mineral price floors. Also, some breaking news. Michael Burry warns Bitcoin's decline will wipe out significant value for companies holding large amounts on their balance sheets. And there's a lot of people and companies holding Bitcoin. He says that Bitcoin has failed as a safe haven like gold and behaves more like a volatile stock tied to the S&P 500. Aggressive holders face bankruptcy risk as it continues to fall, potentially triggering broader market turmoil. I'm about to show you Bitcoin melted down. Now, the Kobayashi letter is talking about a little bit of price action today. Here's what they're saying, and if you guys have been watching the futures, you're going to agree with this, but breaking. Silver prices post a massive reversal, falling nearly $9 an ounce in under 3 hours, while gold prices also fall $220 an ounce in under 3 hours. Isn't it just so interesting how when the market closes and overnight, it goes up, but when the market opens during the day, it goes down? I wonder if that has anything to do with manipulation. What do you guys think? Here's where we're at as the recording of this video for the prices of silver, essentially kind of stuck in the mid to low 80s. We're sitting at 85.42 right now, but prices of silver today got as high as $92. When I saw that, I was like, no way, we're back at $90. Now, obviously that has disappeared, but we did hit that at one point, and silver, although the market is kind of crashing and melting down, is still up 2.5%. As far as Shanghai, China silver prices, and we're talking about physical, the futures are paper, the manipulations in paper, which transitions to manipulation in physical. But the physical price per ounce for silver in Shanghai right now is $105.63. That means that the premium roughly right now is still astronomical. It's nearly 16%, sitting at $15.93 gap between China and the US. The gold to silver ratio is sitting at 57.12 ounces of silver to meet 1 ounce of gold. And you guys can see the skyrocketing increase in that ratio right there. And I want to remind you guys that during 2011, this was under 40. And we didn't even hit that during the last run up. So it sounds like we got a lot of room to go up still. Now, this next part, you guys, is absolutely atrocious. I'm about to go over the fees and expense it costs to either get in or get out. It's absolutely insane. So what you guys are seeing right now is look at that 1 ounce silver generic round right under my face. So under the gold, but you see that $12 right there. So they're saying that the premium, let's just call it a fee, that the fee to sell to them is $12, but they're not counting the amount they're taking off of the bid price. They take another $2 off the price. In other words, guys, to sell right now, it's insane. To sell, 16% premium, 16% fee to sell. And it's not just selling, it's also buying, because we have a major problem with silver and gold right now. Obviously, there's the manipulation, the paper holdings is absolutely incredible. But look at you guys, the premium to purchase is $11.89. That equals a premium, at least with this company, right? You want to shop, you want to find the lowest price, but that's 13.5% to buy silver right now. Do you guys think that we have an abundance of silver with these types of premiums? Mitch, still a lot of volatility, still a lot of manipulation in the markets, but I want to really focus on what JD Vance just said, what the administration plans on doing with Project Volt, with potential price floors. They didn't come out and say they're going to do that for gold and silver. They didn't say that. So can you kind of just give us your interpretation of what they said and whether or not it's a good idea?
The best way to describe the speech, I understand what he's saying, but as far as a speech is concerned, it's extremely hollow. And the reason that it's hollow is it's not quantified. He didn't specify the type of critical minerals that he wants to discuss: aluminum, cobalt, lithium, nickel, the rare earth elements, copper. One could even say steel when China was dumping steel. But over and above not quantifying what those minerals are, it would have been a much better speech had he been able to define why we are where we are. And we can quantify through volatility being a mathematical measure that should be used to manage the stability. So if he's saying we're not stable because we are unable to acquire the minerals for national security purposes, state it. Then state why is that? And my position is you want to state that because we are where we are due to socialist policies that have allowed countries to dump and now countries to hoard. The only answer to this is free market capitalism and to place buy orders appropriately through companies around the globe that says, we will acquire this. That is the issue. But I don't believe that talking generically above the audience gets anything accomplished. This has to be quantified. And it all ends up in volatility. Right now, we have store shelves that are empty. He's correct. We have mineral supplies that are empty. He's correct. His speech at the top level is correct. However, if you can't define the problem or don't want to define the problem, then you can't fix it. There are fixes for this. There's no doubt there's fixes. Point of the matter is we are where we are because the government, our government, has failed to do its job, which is get out of the way, stop putting money in other people's pockets through socialist policies. Tell the truth, let's get to business, and let's get the problem fixed. These things can be quantified, the volatility can be quantified, and you can manage to stability when you understand what's really going on under the hood.
So in other words, you guys, to be determined, there's just not enough information. There's potentially maybe some promising things going on there so that we can't just get bamboozled like we did last Friday through manipulation and nonsense. But regardless, let's go into our next segment. We're going to start this segment by listening to what Grant Cardone has to say. And when he's talking, remember I just showed you that massive company that's purchasing gold. Remember that.
I know a guy right now trying to get rid of like 10,000 pieces of silver. He can't.
Really?
He can't get a real offer on it. He's getting a 30% discount below the market. Like this is people see it just spiking up like this, and they're like, "Oh my God, gold's at $100." Go try to sell a gold.
Huh.
Go try to sell $10 million worth of gold today, and watch what happens.
Huh.
You're going to have offers 20 and 30% below market,
Right?
Because you want to sell your gold now. You're showing your hand, putting your flag up, say, "Surrender. I want my $100." You're not going to get $100 for your gold, not in scale.
I mean, listen,
And you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Much less in 5 minutes. Gold, same thing. It's got to go get authenticated. It's got to get validated.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to get, dude, there's a lot of fake gold. Okay. Then somebody's going to have to pay you the money, and then you got to get it out of storage. Okay. The Bitcoin, dude, the Bitcoin is a real thing, bro. Bang.
Right.
I can have it tomorrow. I can trade it back to you in 5 minutes. Like that to me is real, because Bitcoin to me is not just money. It is technology. Unlike gold or silver or even paper stocks. Okay. Paper stocks is a technology, but they can just keep printing the paper forever.
Now I'm going to give Grant to Mitch to respond to, but I just one question for Grant Cardone. Why don't you go try to sell $10 million worth of commercial real estate right now and tell us what happens? Either way, you guys, let's go into some price forecasting. You guys can see that right here. And not that I trust this, but I think it's interesting to see the flip-flopping, especially from JP Morgan, with an estimate for gold an ounce to hit $6,300, Bank of America at $6,000 an ounce, UBS at $6,200 an ounce, Jefferies at $6,600 an ounce. Good job there. Yardena Group at $6,000 an ounce. Also, some breaking news from Peter Schiff. A lot of people talking about Bitcoin today. Just in, Peter Schiff says China is too smart to care about Bitcoin. They're buying gold, and it's probably because, you know, gold is like a real asset and Bitcoin is like nothing. Also, just in, silver shortage in Dubai as buyers pay a 15% premium amid rising demand. I got news for you guys. We're paying 13.5 right now. So not that much difference when you actually look at what's going on. Plus, are the people in India shopping? Can't you find anything lower than that? I'm sure we can here. But either way, this is a worldwide problem. Now, I thought this was interesting from Walter Bloomberg. Chinese Traitor makes a $500 million bet against silver. And that was ahead of the recent plunge last Friday. The firm built a large bearish position in late January, equivalent to about 484 tons of silver, as prices topped $100 an ounce before falling sharply. Despite the drop, silver remains up 24% per year. But it just all goes back to the shenanigans and what's happening behind the scenes, because anytime we get bamboozled and there's what Mitch is saying, when there's massive volatility, someone gets rich every single time. I thought this was good as well from Gold Silver HQ, saying silver is vanishing fast. Another whopping 5.9% of silver out of the vault in only one day. And that's SGE, so that's China. Insane. Now, before Mitch gives Grant Cardone the smoke, let's listen to what Ray Dalio has to say just one more time about maybe converting to a gold-backed currency.
It's the beginning of the end of the monetary system as we know it. It's not just the US dollar, it's the fiat monetary currencies. So the UK, the euro, Japan, China all have similar debt problems and so on, and are dealing with the same interrelationships, which is the reason you're seeing gold being chosen by the central banks. They want a currency. Gold has always been the main currency, and it's the only non-fiat currency, in other words, not the currency that can't be printed, that they want. And so that's why you're seeing central banks move and sovereign wealth funds move to gold, and that's the nature of the shift of the monetary system.
Mitch, can you respond to what Grant Cardone said, and then also what Ray Dalio just said? What are your thoughts on both those men and what they're saying?
With regard to Mr. Cardone, two divergent opinions make a market. With regard to what he said, I'll take the exact opposite side. And the reason being that multifamily in today's world, due to inflation, if you're lucky, is a 7 cap, all cash, meaning a 7% rate of return per annum, all cash, unlevered. Levered, you would be lucky to see an 11% rate of return. With education on futures and options, an 11% rate of return can be had in 4 days, if not sooner, if you know what you're doing. You can use options, you can use futures, options on futures. You can use a combination of both simultaneously. He's saying Bitcoin, and isn't it interesting that a few days ago, I think it was about 4 days ago, I mentioned on a video that Bitcoin was probably, based on the math, headed to 60,000. That's pretty well where it's headed to. So on a short-term basis, if one can read the charts, you can pretty well get a fair idea where things are headed. There's a correlation in the market, and Travis hit on this, but when things sell off, as they did today in NASDAQ, it tends to drag everything down, including metals, with it simultaneously. But also on Friday, when the market went down dramatically, I stated what we had seen in one day was 10 bars, 2 legs, in this case, straight down. So in other words, instead of it taking 10 days, 10 bars, it went down in one day. Well, it's still technical trading. And at the moment, we're seeing inside bars. So That 10 days can still play out. It can still drop. But here's the point. And this comes back to Mr. Dalio as well and Grant Cardone. Metals are not to be flipped. You don't buy any precious metal today and think you're going to sell it tomorrow. That would be suicide. Metals are there for the long haul. If you're interested in short-term trading, then learn options, learn futures, and you can do 21-day cycles, or you can use futures intraday, whatever your pleasure is, no problem. When people say, well, I can't get out, perhaps they shouldn't have been in the first place. You have no business flipping precious metals. It is suicide. So it also comes back to Mr. Dalio when he says that gold is a currency. Absolutely. This is why the central banks are acquiring. This is also why people such as Mr. Cardone saying, well, Bitcoin is going to go up and gold is going to go down, et cetera, they're wrong. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It is a speculative instrument until such time as it is connected to a commodity. Period. End of paragraph. Nobody can disprove that statement. Therefore, where would you rather be? Do you want your money in a bank? Or do you want your money, your currency, for that matter, buried in your backyard? It doesn't matter. It's in your hands. It's in your control. Banks have the right, when things go bad, to take your money, it's called a bail-in, and hand you back a share in their bankrupt bank. This is why metals will continue to run, regardless of the pullback. The pullbacks are money from heaven. The pullbacks are the opportunities to buy. This is why I've been saying it's very important for people to understand how to read charts and learn how to read these charts. Then you can pick the spots that you want to enter, knowing full well that you're going to be in these metals for the long haul. That's where the money is. People that lose, they're losing because they're exiting at the wrong time, and the broker dealers want to know that they're going to make money. They don't want to buy it back today only to find out that it dropped another $7 tomorrow morning because of the volatility. They can't handle the volatility. Isn't it interesting? We started this conversation on this exact topic with JD Vance saying, use the volatility to quantify where you are. You have the exact same issue with the precious metals. Use the volatility to quantify where you are. Bitcoin, it's volatility. Where are you? Where's the market going to go based on that volatility? And you're right back to the cone. It's all quantifiable. It just takes patience to learn how to quantify it. Then you've got to be able to articulate it. Mr. Cardone failed. He couldn't articulate it. And mathematically speaking, metals will outrun any multifamily. If that statement wasn't true, I would be the first one right now today under construction. I'd be at the head of the line. But I can't get it to make sense. But I can get the metals to make sense. I cannot, under any circumstance, get any of these coins, stablecoin or anything else, to make any sense until such a time as it is connected to its own floor, which is a commodity.
Very good, Mitch. And I'm going to have to agree 100% about Grant Cardone's inability to articulate things, because I don't know if you noticed, but he flipped from silver to gold. And then he stayed on gold. He was initially talking about silver, then he flopped to gold. So I don't even know if he understood what he was saying. Either way, let's go into the Bitcoin meltdown segment of this video. And I want to tell you guys that at the end of this segment, there's going to be a new advocacy article that Mitch is going to review and read to you guys called The Traitor Within. But before we start this segment, let's listen to words from Ronald Reagan.
You know, sometimes the big spenders in Congress talk as if all that money they spend just kind of magically appears on their doorstep, a gift from the Internal Revenue Service. They talk as if spending were all giving and no taking. Well, there is no magic money machine. Every dollar the government spends comes out of your pockets. Every dollar the government gives to someone has to first be taken away from someone else. So it's our moral duty to make sure that we can justify every one of your tax dollars, that we spend them wisely and carefully, and just as important, fairly. Unfortunately, hardly anyone could honestly call federal budgets wise, careful, or fair. Is it fair to ask one small business to help subsidize its competitors? Is it fair to ask workers in the private economy to pay for civil service pensions that are much more generous than the retirement benefits they receive? Is it fair to ask low-income families to help pay for the college education of children from families with incomes as high as $100,000 a year? Is it fair to ask taxpayers to help pay billions for export subsidies to a handful of America's biggest corporations? Well, it isn't fair, and you know it. But that's the law of the land right now, just part of the legacy of 50 years of trying to do good things for all by treating your earnings like government property. The time has come to decide what benefits we can properly expect from the federal government for ourselves, our neighbors, and those in need, and what government can take from us in taxes without making everyone worse off, including those who need our help. The one thing we cannot do is stay on the immoral, dead-end course of deficit spending.
Yet, sadly, that's exactly what's been happening for the last few decades, and that's why we're even making this video, to be honest with you. We have some breaking news leading into the Bitcoin meltdown. Japan just called an emergency investment meeting today at 6:50 p.m. Eastern Time. They will officially dump $620 billion of U.S. stocks and ETFs to support the yen. Expect high market volatility. All eyes on the market. That's insane. Also, what's pretty insane is that the CMBS delinquency rate for offices is 12.3%. It is literally worse than the aftermath of the global financial crisis, and yet we're not in recession. We're not in depression. Maybe we're not in an official recession and depression because of the money printing and overwhelming amount of leverage and the constant bailouts. Let me know what you think. Now for Bitcoin, breaking news. Bitcoin is dumping hard ahead of Japan's emergency meeting today. Whoa, that's not good. BlackRock sold that 15,000 Bitcoin. Binance sold 9,000. Look at, so Coinbase 9,000. Wintermute 9,000. Over $3.5 billion in Bitcoin was dumped in 24 minutes. And as of the recording of this video, it looks like Bitcoin is up 0.01%. Wow, what a good time to move on to this. But notice the previous close was 73,332, so it just closed. It's now opening, and it's up. I guess I better change the title of this video. What do you think? Just in, Cathie Wood, and I can't tell you how much money I've lost listening to her. It's a lot. It's about 30,000 because of T-Doc. Teledoctor, remember that crap? Should never have invested in that. My wife reminds me, by the way. But she doesn't need to because my soul and heartbreak also reminds me. But just in, Cathie Wood just dropped an absolute bomb on critics. She said, I mean, everyone is going for Bitcoin because they know the dollar is useless, right? She said Bitcoin is still going to $1.5 million from 75,000. I think she meant to say 73,000 because it's actually under 75,000 right now. Another big run is coming. They're trying to pump Bitcoin like crazy, guys. And we're going to listen to just one more video before moving on to the article that's titled The Traitor Within. And I thought that this was a great video to listen to transition to that, because this man is saying that Bitcoin is going to hit $10 million. He's just not quantifying why.
Volatility was a gift to the faithful. It scares away the tourist. It scares away the lazy. It scares away the people that are already conventionally rich, that have all the money. If you're a 20-something or a 30-something and you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to spend 100 hours or 200 hours, if you have more time than money, then the volatility of Bitcoin is a gift to you. If you have more, if you have more money than time, and you're arrogant and egotistical and you just pick the obvious, then if the volatility goes away, you buy Bitcoin. If people in the rest of the world knew what I know and they understood and they agreed with me, Bitcoin would go to $10 million tomorrow.
Let's be honest, guys. If everyone thought like him, anything would go to $10 million, right? Anything. That's not quantifying how it's going to get to $10 million. Now, I want to move into the advocacy efforts. I'm really excited to go over this article that Mitch wrote. He's going to go into gold as well. But I wanted to remind you guys, come to my website. It's 100% free. Go to realestatemindset.org. Go to the fight tab, because I am working on a banger of a tab right now on how to teach people how to become a citizen journalist. But what I wanted to point out today is the resources. So you can come here, and when you're ready to start investigating corruption, use these resources and links to help you along the way. And having said that, don't forget to go to Mitch's amazing website. It's better than my website. I'll be the first person to admit that. Go to the articles, letters, and discussion tab. The last few articles that this man has made, they have been Excalibur. Mitch, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you don't get paid any money at all, ever, despite me asking, can I give you some money? Thank you for this, sir. Can you read this and summarize it whenever you're ready?
Just before I get into this article, Ronald Reagan's quote is absolutely stunning because it's a phenomenal summary of what we're about to discuss here in a second. His quote was, treating your earnings like government property. Let's keep that in mind until I get through this. The other issue is with regard to Mr. Saylor, if he has knowledge that the rest of us peons don't have, then ask yourself this, why isn't he can't articulate it? This article is called The Traitor Within, The Root Cause, Thomas Paine, and Gold's Resurgence. In early 2025, both Travis and I attended a meeting in a county in Texas wherein I was asked to help create a scope of work for a forensic audit to be conducted by the board of that particular central appraisal district. I did so as I knew the damage done to the community by the CAD was massive. I knew the chief appraiser had never read or taught uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, and the result was property tax fraud and school district bond fraud on a mass scale. And I also knew that multiple school districts in that county are bankrupt. It turns out that one of the people in that meeting who was, to my face, very intent on getting to the bottom of the issue and who asked for the scope of work, turns out that person was a traitor to the citizens of the county. And he decided to convince the board to hire a company to do a fluff piece outlining the personality quirks of a dysfunctional central appraisal district. By not conducting a proper forensic audit, his actions and repeated failings cost the citizens the truth. And the truth is the math as defined in uniform standards of professional appraisal practice and the software from which the fraud is being perpetrated and which can be documented and detailed in less than 10 days of forensic analysis, as we know exactly what to look for. This traitor wasted time, more taxpayer money, and did not give resolution to the taxpayers or properly readily available evidence to the district attorney or the state attorney general. With that said, and as a direct result of that person's failings, I hereby am releasing for use across the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Greenland, the UK, and any country that claims to utilize uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, the Forensic Audit Central Appraisal District Scope of Work. This document, along with that audit document, will be listed below this video. You can change the names in the document, but follow the path, which will save you a massive amount of time and a massive amount of money. I want to point out two items. First, an audit can still be conducted on this CAD. This CAD is guilty of violating dozens of laws. We have that evidence. The district attorney is fully aware of it, but we need the forensic analysis for the DA and the attorney general to be able to use. This board has the full ability to turn right around and demand not a fluff piece, but an actual forensic audit. Two, this is the exact reason why the involvement of every taxpaying citizen in every community across the United States is no longer an option. It's a civil responsibility. There are criminals and traitors among us, and they cannot be allowed to steal our money for their pet projects. And this is on both sides of the aisle. And to take that money and put it in their pocket. Across the United States, it is important for property tax-paying citizens and central appraisal district boards to conduct forensic audits and make demand on your state's attorney general for prosecution and file formal criminal complaints on the CADs and the individual employees at those CADs with the FBI, DOJ, and SEC. These filings should be made very public and all the criminality brought into the light. The advantage of what Travis is doing with the camera, the advantage of what we have on audio, the advantage of the depositions, make an insurmountable challenge to the criminals. They cannot jump the hurdle. That's the advantage of exposing and bringing light onto this process. Repeal the property tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax and get this fraud out of the system. With regard to the root cause, coincidentally, everything we've been talking about here in this video today, what is the root cause of the school district bond fraud? The answer is no accountability. Those in charge never cared one bit about their constituents' ability to pay for the cost of the bonds, nor did they bother to understand the ramifications of their actions. The report we ordered and paid for is the work and says that their work is fine. You understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is they ordered the report. The criminals ordered the report. They turn around and they say, well, we have this report, and the report says it's going to work. The conflict of interest is off the charts. By the way, they used your tax money to order the report. Now, those bonds and those same school districts that relied on these fraudulent reports are in imminent bankruptcy, as are roughly 42 million households across the United States due to the compound cumulative effect of the interest on the fraudulent bond debt. Interestingly enough, the power grid across the country needs updating because, at least for the last 20 years, they haven't spent any money on capital improvements. Now comes the data centers, private enterprise that in many cases do not pay property tax and requires enough power per data center to run a city. Isn't it interesting that in order to upgrade the transmission lines, bonds will have to be raised? I have just one question. We've proven that the money does not exist today, that 42 million households to pay down the principal of roughly 5.1 trillion in outstanding fraudulent school district bonds. And housing is unaffordable for the majority of citizens, as the tax requirement is roughly 8.6% of the household's effective gross income as a result of the compound cumulative fraud. So how exactly will the money exist tomorrow morning, literally, to pay for new bonds to improve the transmission lines across the country for private enterprise data centers that have yet to provide a return on investment or a return of investment? This ties into the next component part of this. Thomas Paine was clairvoyant. The statement that he made is a thirst for absolute power is the natural disease of monarchy. To the evil of monarchy, we have added hereditary succession. The first is degradation and lessening of ourselves. The second, claimed as a matter of right, is an insult and an imposition on posterity. That was part of the article called Common Sense that Thomas Paine wrote over 250 years ago. It's very important to understand what he actually was saying, so I'm going to put it in modern terms. In modern translation, absolute power of the government, picking winners and losers with taxpayer money, which is socialism, is a disease of the government. To the evil of socialist government or socialists within the government, we have added hereditary succession, which refers to the practice of passing down leadership roles, such as the belief in replacing one socialist with another socialist, which can lead to unqualified individuals ruling simply because of their birthright, i.e. Trudeau, Bush, Clinton, unyielding allegiance to the proven failed construct of socialism. This concept is criticized for being an unjust and unnatural way to determine leadership, as it does not guarantee that the successor will be capable of or deserving of a position in government. The first being degradation of lessening ourselves is what you see playing out in the socialist communities where civil conversation is no longer available. There's an article that I wrote called "It's Your Money That Is Paying for Their War on Civility." The second being socialism, which is unjust because it imposes a legacy of rule on future generations without their consent. No one should have the right to establish a ruling family or socialist policies that is favored over others indefinitely. Looking back 250 years, it becomes clear that the sacred fire of liberty, as penned in the writings of Thomas Paine, which burned in those hardy souls being the founders of the United States of America, was not only a flame that couldn't be extinguished, it was an idea which is destined to change the world, and it must be protected and codified socialism as illegal. If the cancer of socialism is allowed to grow, so will the probability of civil war and/or secession. And that leads us to gold's resurgence. Gold's resurgence validates the thesis that demand for the non-sovereign, inflation-resistant asset is exploding. Investors seek refuge in assets that lie outside the policy sphere altogether. Whether political actors treat interest rates, exchange rates, and sovereign debt as tools for short-term and long-term manipulation. Organic growth is sustainable growth. Manipulation of the population being taxation to sustain the fraud of socialism is dangerous. It is about the fraud, which is not in the pundit's analysis, discussion, or thought process. It is about credibility, which can't exist as long as the fraud of socialism exists. Credibility comprises the objective and subjective components of the believability of a source or message. Credibility is deemed essential in many fields to establish expertise. It must play a crucial role in journalism, teaching, science, medicine, business leadership, social media, and governance. In today's society, credibility is lacking in the very elements that are necessary for society to thrive. And in every instance, the lack of credibility has as its roots the fraud of socialism. Restoring credibility, including in our currency, means eliminating the fraud. Restoring credibility in our local communities means repealing all property taxes in favor of the uniform states sales tax. All these things are hooked at the hip. These are the articles that I've written that Travis is showing you. They're on the website, mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD under the articles, letters, and discussion section. And everything we just went through here proves that Mr. Saylor is on the wrong side of history.
So the question is what side of history are you going to be on? If you're already a member of Substack, you're about to get that article. I'm going to start working on a Substack right now, but I also have news on an advocacy video that's also going to be released on Substack, which is what's going on in Conroe, Texas. Criminal complaints have been filed. I'm trying to rally these people up. I'm trying to help them become citizen journalists. So if you want to know how that's going, that video will be released probably tonight on Substack. Everything's linked in the video below. Don't forget to like the video, comment on the video, share the video, and if possible, hype the video. And other than that, guys, if you're out there just trying to figure out what to do next, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.